The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Now broadcasting from the Right to Offend Media Studios in sunny South Florida, bringing you the latest in politics, current events, art, and pop culture. This is the Whitfield Report Live with Sam Whitfield.
But giving offense is good. In fact, it's essential.
No, you did not get your days mixed up, ladies and gentlemen. It is not Wednesday, but it is, in fact, Tuesday. And I'm here with the man who is in the first shot of the intro. Mr. Eric P. Bishop returns. What is this? Is this your 7th time on the show? I think it might be.
I've lost track, Sam. Probably. Probably.
Yeah, that's what happens.
What year is it?
Well, I know you were on, the first time you were on was in 2021, and now we're in 2026. And I've known you since 2015, back in the, Mitch Rapp Facebook fan group. So it's been a long journey. But welcome back to the show and happy publication day, my friend. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me on, Sam. Yeah, I guess 7 books means 7 appearances. So I'm actually representing a Body Man shirt here a little bit. This is for Breach of Trust, but I figured I'd throw it on for Downfall since it's in the same series. I'm doing well. Yeah, publication day is always fun. It's always great to talk to Sam on publication day. So yeah, all good.
It's always great to talk to you, and I'm honored that you've always, included me as part of your publication day. So really appreciate that. And it's also fitting that you're wearing the Breach of Trust, shirt, because I haven't had a chance to read Downfall yet, but Breach of Trust is still my favorite book in your series, The Body Man, so far.
I'm biased, so Downfall is mine, but whatever I write is always the last thing I wrote was always my favorite till I write the next one, and so I'm a little biased.
Yeah, no, I get that, because I'm the same way with my books. It's always interesting though, because I find that at least with my books, whichever one I've written, the latest is kind of my favorite, but then at the same time, there are definitely other books where I'm like, man, that one was real like a landmark in the, in the series, or man, I really improved, this aspect of my writing with XYZ book more so than some others, or I took a bigger risk and it paid off, and or well, that one didn't work out, so well, might have to kill this character off at some point down the line.
Yeah,
So,
I see that. I if I'm completely honest, obviously the first book coming out was probably the most special, only because, like you said, you knew me since 2015, so I finished my first book in 2014, but it wasn't until until I finished the 4th one. The Body Man is what actually ended up getting picked up by a publisher and published. So that one definitely has a special. I'm always trying to recreate that energy, that magic of like holding that book for the first time,
sure.
and doing all that. And as special, I opened Downfall. I got a video of it. I haven't posted it, but I opened my copy of Downfall actually before it even came out. I kind of pulled the trigger a little early so I could have my hardcover.
Yeah.
It felt really cool to hold it. But at the same time, truth be told, it's never as special as it's like your first kid, it's like or your first wife or whatever.
Yeah,
First
yeah.
where it might be, it's always special, and then the next ones come along and they're special. They're really special, but it's not the first one.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And to kind of jump off from that, I do want to get into Downfall, obviously, since that's why we're here. But before we jump into that directly, about a month earlier this summer, let me just say,
Mhm.
you participated in an anthology collection that you wrote with a few of our mutual authors. And as someone who has also been published in an anthology series, that's always an interesting, you know, uh, process to participate in. So
Mhm.
I didn't get a chance to have you on when that came out, just because of scheduling and
Yeah.
things kind of happened. But anyway, uh, if you don't mind, could you share with us a little bit about that whole process and what that was like?
Sure.
Writing that
Yeah,
and
that one was a little
whatnot.
bit different to try to market in the sense of like doing I didn't do any podcasts. I did have Steve Stark on my podcast on A Tale of Two Scribes to talk about it. And I had some of the other authors over the past couple of years. It's a process that started 2 years ago. So to finish that thought process, when it came out, for me to go on a podcast and promote it just didn't feel, it felt weird because I only have one of
Yeah,
those stories. So it's not my story. Or I have a story in there, but
right.
it's not my book. I published it. It's published under Bruno Media, and I did a heck of a lot of work to get it out. But it's definitely a joint effort. So the quick story is how it actually started was a couple years back. John Guarnieri and I were just kind of brainstorming and kind of pitching different ideas to each other. And I'm sure he probably mentioned it because I wouldn't have brought up horror, but it was just decided, hey, let's do a horror anthology. And it took like 2 years to basically get it all put together, get all the authors. Most of the authors had it submitted really quick. A
Yeah,
few stragglers didn't. And then someone wasn't able to participate, so that one didn't get included. But yeah, so it was a fun way of kind of branching out. I know like Emma Adair did a story, FX Reagan. So authors that don't write in that genre, myself, I don't write in that genre. It was neat to kind of explore the horror genre, which I don't read in it. So as I reread my story, I was even like, is this horror? I think it's horror, but not really familiar with horror very much. Stephen King and stuff like that. But even Stephen King,
yeah.
I haven't read him since he probably did Coke. So, it was a long time ago last time I read Stephen King. So, but that's how it came about. That's the gist of the story coming out, and just getting together some good authors and kind of stretching our legs. And some of the authors in there are pure horror authors.
Yeah.
That's their world. So,
Well, one of my that was kind of the interesting thing is I was kind of like, well, that's not really Eric's
mm-mm.
forte. So I was so that must have been a challenge. Short stories are different than novels for sure, but even so, when you're writing in a genre that isn't usually in your wheelhouse,
Hmm.
for the first time,
Yeah.
I imagine that can be a bit different, you
It,
know,
it wasn't a
for you.
challenge in the sense of it was only a short story, so I wrote it like in an afternoon, I think. But I
Yeah.
reread it and edited it. My biggest thing was, is this actually horror? And I had a couple people read it, and they said it was. So I was like, okay, I guess I nailed it in that regard. But there were some really good writers that contributed stories, so I definitely felt a little bit inadequate. Like I wasn't like with thriller writers. I mean, I always feel inadequate, I guess, from a writing perspective. But there's some authors that I'm like, oh, I can keep up with them. And there's other authors, the Daniel Silvas of the world, that I can't even like read anymore because I'll pick up a Daniel Silva book and I'll get like 2 pages in, I'll be like, man, this dude can write. I suck. I just have to, I have to put it away until I retire one day, and maybe I
Yeah.
lose my mind and I can't remember to write, and I can read it like, oh, I love reading this guy's book, and I'll enjoy it.
There are definitely authors like that, for me, too. Even like, going back, like Ivan Rhee, I've been rereading some of the old Ian Fleming James Bond
Hmm.
novels, and and he's been gone for you know almost as long as the James Bond movie franchise has been
Right, exactly.
around. But even so, it's like man, even even 50 years ago, he's light years ahead of you know, and I've tried to kind of pay homage, where I can do a lot of different authors, I think, as we all do to some extent. But it's like, man, even if you try and, pay tribute to the
Mhm.
greats, without plagiarizing, it's just never going to be quite the same, I guess.
No, it's like
So
you can never. Yeah, I was gonna say I couldn't do that. I wouldn't get it right, and then it would feel too strange. You just have to use your own voice. I do want to like
yeah,
Ryan. Ryan's been sending some messages. I thought I could message him back, but apparently I can't from my vantage point. So Ryan, I see your messages. Looking forward to coming on with you Saturday, and thank you for the kind words. So it's not ignoring you, Ryan.
yeah, yeah. No, I hello to Ryan in chat, and it is great to see you. So, and I'm glad that yeah, I'm glad that you two connected as well. So I'll be sure to plug that at the end of the show. Um, so yeah, with kind of jumping into Downfall, this is your fourth book in the Bodyman series.
It
And
is.
you've kind of taken the series in a couple of different directions. So
Mhm.
what inspired you to take this direction? You're kind of going a bit in the past, and then also
Yeah.
international conflicts with China. Is that on the table? Kind of seems like from the cover.
On the cover, there might be a little hint on who the who could be pulling some strings. Ironically, I didn't even think about it. I just grabbed the Body Man shirt. I literally jumped in the shower. I was like, "Crap, I got to get ready for this interview." I grabbed the shirt, but the Breach of Trust shirt is actually the perfect one to have on tonight because this really fed from the last couple lines in Breach of Trust. There's a list of names found on the chief's body. 12 names, 12 surnames. What you find out in Supreme Justice, and really what you find out in Downfall, is that list of names is the former body men and the current body man, Nick Jordan. So basically, what I'm exploring in Downfall is who formerly held the role, why are they being targeted, because they are being targeted. In the first chapter, which you can go read the first 4 chapters on my website, ericpbishop.com, read the first 4 chapters of Downfall, and you'll see, so I'm not giving it away, if you go there, Kip Armstrong is brought up. So he was the first body man, and he was brought in because we had the first television president, JFK, and television, his eyes looked around a little bit and he was like, "Hey, Marilyn Monroe, she's pretty cute." So we need to bring someone into the White House that can be like, "Yo, what are you doing, dude? Knock it off." Of course, Bill Clinton didn't learn that lesson, obviously, years later. But Bill Clinton's body man is a guy named Jacob. He's in this story, and there's a little mention of that. So I'm just exploring this imaginary world, and I can go into more about the body man role in the course of talking to you, of course, tonight. But kind of going back to seeing who these people were, where did they go? Because one of the rules with the body man is once your role comes to an end and the apprentice takes over, the body man is basically given a very generous stipend monthly and
Mhm.
told, leave the United States and go enjoy life, and your secrets die with you. Well, what happens if someone tries to get those secrets? And what if those secrets aren't safe? So that's kind of what's explored in Downfall. All the early reviews were very kind. I thought when I finished it, I like how I kind of tied this together because it is a transition point at this point with the series. The Body Man's still going on, but I'm kind of finishing what I started with Breach of Trust, where who are these names, who are these body men, and some of them might come up in future books, but I'm kind of putting to rest this big mystery behind the list, basically, or I hope I'm putting it to rest at least.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of seems like, you're completing one arc in your, series and continuing, and maybe starting a new,
Yeah, we could talk about that for the end. I'll tell you
one.
where we go next. It's already been started, so yeah, I'll be glad to talk about that before the end of the podcast. So
Yeah, so, well, I mean, I did the same thing, this last year with Shadows of Deception, where I kind of wrapped up, one arc last year with Sins of the Assassin, and then American Inferno, was the start of a new one that's kind of taken the series in a much darker direction, partially by design, but also partially because of, current events and
Yeah.
things that have gone on, in the world. But
I did want to answer. Ryan had a question here I thought was interesting. What movies or TV shows influenced my writing?
yeah,
Um, I'll be sarcastic and say, probably like Dallas and Falcon Crest and Knots Landing, all these. So when I was a little kid growing up, my mom would keep me up with her late at night watching all these, somewhat trashy evening soap operas that weren't soap operas, I guess. But yeah, those probably stuck with me. So probably some of the drama going on behind the scenes with Merci and other characters is probably straight from that. But I also grew up in the 80s, so the A-Team was a big influence. Airwolf, Magnum PI, a lot of the 80s shows were quintessential for me. And then as I've gotten older, I stream shows, but that's one thing I had to do in 2014 when I took writing serious and finished my first book was I had a full-time job. I was married at the time, 2 little kids. I had to give something up to get something, which was writing novels, and television
yeah,
what I gave up. Now, I say that not saying I never watch television anymore, but for a stretch, man, I didn't watch many movies. I would watch like Seinfeld, and I think I started Breaking Bad that year or the year after I wrote the book or whatever. So I kind of binged through that series in a year or two. But yeah, more modern TV shows, it's a lot harder to get into them. I am watching some. I'll watch them when I don't have my kids at night when I'm eating.
yeah,
Landman's good. I'm watching Landman now. I really like The Diplomat for whatever reason. That's like my favorite show. I think it's coming back in October, so I'll try not to binge it. So that's what I do. I allow myself like one show a night while I'm watching TV, or on a Friday night after I do my writing, I'll watch a movie or watch something. But I try to limit it because if I'm watching shows, I'm not writing, and if I'm not writing, I'm not making progress like I want to do.
yeah. No, what's funny about that is there have been like a few times where I've written something, and then someone, either in an early kind of, one of my beta readers, or someone immediately after the book is published will say, "Oh, wow, this reminds me of XYZ," and I'm like, I haven't even seen it. Case in point, when I wrote Night of the Vigilante, which is, my DEA kind of drug enforcement thing,
Mm-hmm.
someone was like, "Oh, this reminds me of that movie Sicario."
All right, yeah.
And I had heard of Sicario, like, I remember when it came out, but I had never seen it just because I was busy with, college, so
Mhm.
a
I don't think
lot
I
of
saw the
people
first one. I think I saw there's just 2 of them, right?
there are 2 of them, but, like, I
What's
hadn't
the
even
second
seen
one?
the
I don't think
first one.
I've still seen the first one. I need to go I know I need to watch it. Again, I have a list of things in my brain of like, "Oh, I gotta go back and watch these shows I skipped for 10 years."
Yeah.
Who knows if I'll ever will.
But it's kinda but that's the other interesting thing is someone was like, "Oh, you ripped off this character from Sicario," and I'm like, "I have no idea who that even is." So, there's no way I could've,
So, I said this on one of the podcasts in the last year or so, and I'll get the lyric wrong. I'm a huge U2 fan. Crap, which song is it? Now I'm just totally drawing a blank. Acrobat? Might be Acrobat, or one of them. One of their songs, Bono has a line that every artist is a cannibal, every poet is a thief. And the
yeah,
reason I bring that up is there are literally people that obviously plagiarize and steal people's ideas, yes. But there's so many things that have been written over the years that to think that what's coming out of your mouth is like original is really hard to say sometimes because it's probably been said in some form, especially if you write a modern thriller. You write a modern
yeah,
thriller, you're doing what Clancy did to some degree. You're doing maybe what Vince Flynn did, and they are doing, what Ian Fleming was doing. I mean, there's you go back to it. Someone started the genre at some point, whatever that was, but a lot of times, imitation is the best form of art. Where you're imitating
yeah,
what you've heard your whole life or what you've read, and you're putting your version on it. Like I thought, The Body Man, or I still think The Body Man is kind of an original take. It kind of has some originality to it. But there's probably someone out there that's written something similar, and if they ever came across mine, I'm like, hey, this jerk stole my idea. I never read anything remotely like the Body Man concept when I wrote it. If there was something out there, I didn't see it.
Yeah, well, my co-host, Max, he said
Mhm.
of both your book and of my book series, he was like, this reminds me of a lot of 24 in some
24,
ways
yeah.
with which, I love 24. I saw all 8 seasons and I was like, at first it didn't really, jive with me, but the more I thought, I'm like, "Oh yeah, kind of, it." So, subconsciously things influence you, too.
I loved 24 and Kiefer Sutherland until I forget which season it was. He killed the one dude and justified it. And at that point in my mind, he became a bad guy. And that's what I'm always playing with I'm writing a thriller or suspense book, is how far can you push a character before your protagonist really does become an antagonist. Because there's some modern series out there that are, very well received, New York Times bestseller series, and some of those characters, I think they're psychopaths. When I've read some of the books, I'm like, wow, I can't root for this dude anymore. Or they get to the spot where you're like, no, there is a place you can there's a line you can step over. That doesn't matter if you step back. You already stepped over that line, and you can get redemption in life, but I don't know, from a character arc, you can never be the same person when you commit certain acts.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of my issues with Yellowstone in some aspects
Oh yeah,
without, like, naming specific characters, because we could do a whole podcast on this, but there are multiple characters where they do horrific things,
right,
and that and it's not like in a Tony Soprano, like, they're
right,
supposed they're
right,
supposed to be bad, and the way Taylor Sheridan writes some of them, it's like, "Oh, no, this person just, flat out murdered someone for no," it's not even like a morally gray,
right,
reason, but, you're supposed to believe somehow that they're fully, that they're the hero
right.
somehow.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yellowstone's an interesting series. It's one that I did watch over the last several years or whatever, but I didn't get past like the first 2 or 3 episodes of season 5. I think at that point, it was almost like a Dallas. It was almost like those old soap operas I'd watch with my mom.
yeah.
It just was so ridiculous, and and again, nothing against it. Very successful. People love Yellowstone. But I was kind of, that's the other thing that's changed with me over the years as I've gotten older and maybe wiser, maybe not. I used to, anytime I would start something, I'd finish it, in the sense of a book, TV series, or whatever. I would always feel like, well, I have to see it through its end. Man, I got none of that in me anymore. If I start watching something and I don't enjoy it, I have no problem turning it off. If I open a book and that first chapter, I don't care who wrote it, name your big name author. After that first chapter, I don't enjoy it, I'm not digging it, I'll put that thing away and never look at it again. And if I have to have the person on my podcast, maybe I'll read I don't read most of my most of my guests, but if I did, some of them I have no problem reading the first couple of pages and the last few pages and go, okay, that's the gist of it. Cool, we're
Yeah,
good. It doesn't bother me. And I don't think it bothers people either, because, if you buy someone's book, that's what they're trying to get you to do. If you don't read it, you still bought their book. So,
yeah, and I'm glad that you bring that up too, because, like, as someone who, as you know from podcasting, like, it's really hard when you have a guest to, like, whether it be, another podcaster, an actress or something, an actor, whatever it be, an artist, it's really hard to, listen to their entire discography or watch all their movies or read all their books and really, get everything you can in some
yeah.
cases,
And go ahead.
unless it's their first book or something.
Right. And I think for the most part, for me, and again, I'm not maligning anyone by saying it, because I'm sure people don't read my books and talk to me about podcasts and stuff, and no harm, no foul. I can go, and I always will. I'll read the synopsis to their last book on Amazon or their website, or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I can come up with I can have an intelligent conversation about this story. And most of the time, at least with my podcast, I'm more talking about their journey anyways until they get to those books. And then we talk about the
Yeah.
books, of course. But I'm more curious on my curiosity is how they got to that point when they wanted to start writing, or what was the journey like to get an agent, a publisher, or self-publish. To me, that's kind of where the story is. The book itself, there's just so many to read. And again, I'm an author and I'm trying to sell books, but I totally get from a reading and I do read. It's not that, well, I don't read at all. I have to read. I read a lot.
Yeah.
I don't read much in the thriller genre anymore, though, only because that's what I write and I love writing it. And when I read it, I find that I'm more critical. So I cherry pick which thriller books I'll read nowadays. It's versus, 15 years ago, man, I had a list of them. When Daniel Silva and Vince Flynn and Tom, whoever, when that book came out, I would read them in a night or two, and I have to wait another year for another one. That doesn't happen anymore at all. So,
Yeah. So talk a bit kind of I feel like I ask this question every time you're on, but it's always kind
I'll
of
have
good
the same
to
answer each time.
it's always good to kind of, check in year to year, but like how do you feel like your writing journey has, I guess, changed and
Sure.
evolved now versus like when you started, whether you consider that to be like 2015 when you first started writing, or or I'm sorry, 2015 was when I started writing, 2014 for
Yeah.
you, and then when you published The Body Man in
20.
21.
Yeah. It's changed a lot. It's a good question. So I used to, and I've told this, probably told it on your podcast before. I know I told it on mine. When I wrote my first book in 2014, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So I wrote it in about 3 months. I wrote it about starting at 10 o'clock at night, most nights, 6 nights a week. I was married at the time, 2 little kids. So once the kids were asleep, that was my time. So I would go sit down. I had a pool table in the base. I had a converted garage, man cave, pool table, big screen TV, all that. Had a desk over there and place to sit and write. I would sit there and write, and I'm not exaggerating. Sometimes I sat till 3 or 4 in the morning because I didn't know what I was doing. I would be like, I got to get this out of my head. So I would just write, and the next night, write. I did that for months. I got myself physically sick. Like by the end of the process, I was just wrecked physically because I had so many nights of sleeping 4 or 5 hours or 3 hours because I had a full time job and I had a wife and I had kids and I had a life. Sundays, I always took Sundays off. I didn't write on Sundays, but or Sunday evenings. So I had to change my process with the second book because I knew I couldn't do it. So when I started Breach of Trust, it's like, I can't do that again. Well, I'm sorry. That was Breach of Trust, my second book. Second book in that series, which was, man, I can't remember the title on that one. Didn't get published. So I had to do it different. So I did do it different. And I would basically I was still married, still had kids. I'd start at 10 o'clock at night, but I would be done at midnight. And if I was finishing a paragraph, maybe I'd finish a paragraph, but I wouldn't finish a page. I wouldn't finish a chapter. I'd be done, and then I'd watch an episode of Seinfeld, and that would be my transition point for like, okay, dude, go to bed, laugh a few times, see these episodes you've seen dozens of times, and I just kind of trained myself. And over the course, then I went through a divorce years later, so that kind of changed my process because then I had my kids half the time, and so nights I had the kids, I wasn't writing at all really because I was dad and mom. I had to do both roles, get the kids for school, get them ready, laundry, dishes, all that crap. Now I'm in a different phase in life where my son's off to college, my daughter's here, but she's in high school. Half the time she wants to stay in her room and be like, get away from me, yo. I'll get a bro hug if I'm lucky every now and then. So damn, I can sit on the couch most nights. Any night I want to write because she's not chilling with me very often. So my process has changed dramatically. But also when I started with The Body Man and all that at a publisher, once that went south and I came out with Breach of Trust and Ransom Daughter, I did it under my own imprint. Well, then I became a small business owner. And I've complained about it actually today to someone. We were going back and forth. That's where the work is, man. Trying to do the marketing and all the other stuff.
Oh yeah.
It takes away from so much writing time, and I choose to do it. So I'm complaining by my own actions, but the amount of work it takes to try to get people to, hey, buy my book, all that stuff. Man, that's your time dump now, where it's really hard to find writing time. And I do, and I still am able to
Yeah.
write books, but I'm very disciplined now. When I sit down to write, it's writing time, and it's like the gospel. It's a spiritual moment where you're putting, next couple of hours a hold unless something bad happens to someone and you get called. You got to focus on writing, and I'm hyper focused now when I write.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have time to be able to, like, write a little bit every single day. I don't
Mhm.
say and I don't even say that as, like, a brag or anything,
No,
but
it's not a
but,
brag at all.
like, I've tried to get, disciplined. Some days I write, like, 10 minutes because that's all I have time for.
Mhm,
Some days I can, like, knock out, like, a chapter or 2 somewhat
mhm.
if I have time and I'm really in the zone.
Yeah.
One of the
I'm writing
things
in some form, I'm writing every day, but a lot of times, honestly, where it's
Yeah,
happening is in here. I'm thinking
yeah.
through ideas like, okay, the devil little machines right here, which are horrible creations that I use every day way too much. The beauty of them is notes. So, and my notes
Oh,
are back
yeah.
in the cloud. My goodness, if my notes ever disappeared, I'm screwed because I have future books not planned out, but I have ideas for future books on hand.
Yeah, no, me too.
And so I use that quite a so almost every day I'm making some note of like, oh, and a lot sometimes it's marketing. Sometimes my writing is how to market or what to ask AI because I do use AI. We can talk about AI for briefly. I do use AI for like coming up with images or sometimes ideas for marketing. I don't use it for writing, but I do use it for like marketing ideas. Although it depends. I was using Meta AI the other day and I realized how much Meta sucked. I just was not impressed with it. Versus,
Yeah.
and they spent billion. I know someone works runs one of the data centers, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars on their AI, and man, ChatGPT is the bomb when it comes to that. Grok used to be the bomb, but they started charging for a lot of stuff. So it still does some cool things, but because I don't pay for any of their services, I'm like, yeah, maybe one day if I need you enough, but for what I use them for stupid images or whatever, it's like I'm not giving you guys $20 or $30 a month. I pay enough
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, that's the thing is what so, like, for me as a writer, and I know that there are authors who, who likes to complain about this, but for me, ChatGPT kinda replaced what Scrivener I don't
Yeah,
know if you've
yeah, I'm
ever
familiar
used
with it. Yep.
Scrivener. It's
Hmm.
kind of replaced what Scrivener has done for me as far as, like, keeping track of characters, keeping track of
Yeah.
outlines, and building kind of like a series Bible, which I'm sure you can relate to this
Hmm.
now with, with the Body on series and with, the Omega Group. You
Yep.
have a whole universe and you have multiple characters, and even so, it's not always convenient to be like, "Uh, okay, which chapter did so and so do, and what page was that on?" So
Yeah.
it's easier to be like, "Okay, uh, hey, chat, can you refresh me on,
Hmm.
what, XYZ, especially if they haven't been, in the series for like 1 or 2 books.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's always been very helpful.
I
But,
use a spreadsheet, and then I also do utilize I don't go back and reread my old books, but I have them all. I buy them. I buy the Kindles, so I have
yeah,
them on my Kindle, and so I do the search function on I did it today, literally. I pulled up something about the Body Man today. I hadn't opened that one in a while, but yeah, I end up going back and looking stuff up sometimes that way. But I'm also not adverse to the AI thing's an interesting conversation. Um, because I know some authors are 100% anti AI. Some authors obviously embrace it. I'm more of a hybrid probably with it because I use it for marketing purposes. But what's interesting is some of the people that are so anti AI, what they don't realize is they use Pro Writing Aid or they use Grammarly or they use Microsoft Word. It's like, guess what? It's using AI to give you
yeah,
solutions on stuff. So the devil's in the details sometimes. I'd have a problem with people going into Chat GPT or one of these or Claude. I use Claude too. Claude's actually kind of cool for ideas and stuff or
yeah,
just research, not for ideas for a book, but like research. I'm researching New Zealand and Australia right now because I'm going in a month, and literally those I think it was ChatGPT. It built me a full itinerary. Like, hey, at this point, go to here, and then you need to catch this train to go here, and then you should go here. And I'm like, and it took like 60 seconds to write this. I haven't even read through the whole thing yet
yeah.
the other day. So stuff like that's pretty darn cool that it can do. But it's also something that I think a technology that people are kind of afraid. I am too. They're kind of hesitant to it. There's gloom and doom, like is it going to take away people's jobs? But I think people that are embracing it and utilizing some of the features more are kind of got a leg up. It's like people that didn't want an iPhone when iPhones came out. Like, no, I'm going to keep my flip phone. I'll tell this story. I had online banking on my laptop, but I didn't have the Wells Fargo app years ago. And I was in talking to my banker about some account issue or something. And he goes, "Well, just pull up your online account on your phone." I was like, "Oh, I don't have the app." He goes, "Why not?" I was like, "Dude, I'm not putting a banking app on my phone. What am I, stupid?" He goes, "Do you use your laptop and do web banking?" I was like, "Oh yeah." He goes, "Dude, same encryption, same thing, same protection, same everything." He's like, "Get the app." So literally, I've booked flights across the world now on my phone, and I
Yeah.
do everything on the phone.
Well, it's interesting because I wrote a pretty like in-depth article a few weeks ago. I'll even send it to you after the show if you're interested in reading it on
Sure.
kind of addressing
Oh, is this your AI, what you wrote about AI?
yeah
No, I
how
read
I've
it. I did
because
see it. Yeah.
yeah okay so yeah I wanted to read that not to plug but like I took a lot of what a lot of people said that that are kind of naysaying and I think some of it is definitely valid
Sure.
criticism. But I think a lot of the things that people are maybe afraid of is stuff they don't understand. If
Right.
you're if you're putting in low effort, prompts and you know, you're like trying to make it like fail, it's going to fail. Like you're not going to create like a an advanced thriller level, novel just by putting in like a very basic prompt. But
Right.
if you have multiple ideas like I did after college, kind of collecting on, a big notes thing and you're like, "Man, I have all these ideas, but I don't know how to structure them or where to put them."
Right.
If you have like in-depth ideas and you put that into ChatGPT like you said, you can create like a pretty comparable like outline or something. And as someone who hates the task of outlining and just wants to write, that can be really helpful, I
Yeah.
find.
Well, the other thing too that I'll tell people is Claude actually really does. Claude doesn't do like image creation, all that, but what Claude can do is it can act like a copy editor. And
Yeah,
you can tell Claude, hey, give Claude a paragraph or a page and say, hey, act like a copy editor. Do not. When I've done it, I've never uploaded a Word document. I've just done a PDF of a page of something. Said, hey, act like a copy editor. Tell me what's wrong in here, what the correction is, and give me the grammar rule. And it's never said, hey, rewrite this to have this difference, setting in it or this. No, it just says you need a comma here, you need a period there, your tense is wrong there, you don't have
yeah,
the verb here, it's a fragment. It just basically does what a copy editor does for free. So it's one of those technologies that people are like, well, I don't want to use AI for something like that. It's like, do you want to pay a copy editor $1,000 or do you want to maybe have Claude help you do copy editing? Because I use Pro Writing Aid. I used Grammarly years ago, and Pro Writing Aid does a pretty good job, but it misses stuff. And
yeah,
I pay for Pro Writing Aid every year. I pay for the yearly thing because I use Pro Writing Aid as I'm writing. It just because it will start immediately highlighting stuff and it will kind of good prompt me like, oh, I got to fix this, or maybe when I go my first edit, I'll pull it up and have it run a full diagnostic. But again, it's
yeah.
using AI. So people are like, oh, I'm not going to use AI. It's like, well, you are. I mean, heck, there's authors out there that don't write their own books. It's called ghostwriting, but they go out there and say, look at the book I wrote. Be like, nah, you didn't write that book. I know who wrote that book.
And that's the other thing too, is a lot of these people who are super against AI, it's like, okay, are you against ghost, right writing? And it's like, well, no, that's that's different. It's an actual human. It's like,
Yeah. And
well,
that's one of those tough ones because that's something
yeah,
I didn't know about until years ago, and I was very ignorant. And when I found out about it, I'm like, wait, what? It was like I talked to someone at Thriller Fest years ago. It was a co-writing project. Big name author, well-known author at the time, at least, or whatever. So, man, how's the co-writing go? Like, how are you, you and this other person? What do you like exchange chapters? How does this work? And they're like, Eric, yo, if you see two names on a book cover, the small name wrote the book. And I'm like, what? What do you mean you didn't have like a kumbaya conference and put together ideas and all that? And they're just like, you're stupid. And they did not say that at all. But, it
Right.
was, that's not how every co-writing project necessarily goes. Like I know Andrews and Wilson, they, from what I understand from talking to both of them over the years, they truly are both writing the book at the same time. That's not always the case. I know it's not always the case because I know people that have co-written books. I know people that have ghost-written books, and someone else's name was on it, and someone else did a bunch of press and said, "Look at my book," and I'm like, "Hey, the other
Yeah,
person, go,
yeah,
I
yeah.
wrote that book." Be like, "That sounded like your book. What do you know?" So,
That happens too. I mean,
and I don't like that as an author. They have every right to do it, and I don't judge them.
right.
But man, if I get up there and I'm talking to you about downfall like we are tonight, yes, I had help with people reading the book. I bounced ideas off people over the course of the year of writing and all that. But that's my story, man. I wrote that. I didn't have someone else be like, yo, tag team, you're in. You write 98% of the book and I'll put my name on it and I'll smile and dance like the monkey up here. No, that's mine. And if I were to go up there and start going to conferences and other places and I didn't write it and say I did, as a writer, I got some issues with that. I got some deep issues with that.
Yeah. I mean, the way I've always used ChatGPT is more of like, a personal assistant, literally for
Yeah,
both, writing and for the podcast,
right.
too. And I think the other thing is like, and I know this still bothers people, but like, hey, at least I'm upfront about it.
Sure.
I think the big thing that people have an issue with, and I actually have an issue with, is authors who, and I understand why they do it because of the stigma, but there are lots of authors who have used AI and they kind of conceal, they lie about the fact that they've used AI because it's still kind of an unknown and there's a stigma. But I think even with like the indie publishing, world, I'm sure you can remember when people were like, "Oh, if you're publishing to KDP, you're
You're
not
not
really
you're not
you're
a real
not really
author.
an author.
Right.
You need to go out there and you know put in the elbow grease and try and get a contract." And it's like, well, and I always use you as an example, and it's like, well, Eric actually did. He
Mhm.
actually did. It's not his fault that the
Well,
uh
it was a small
uh
publisher. I definitely
right.
had a contract. I had a 3-book contract. It was a small publisher, but yeah, no, you're preaching to the choir, my friend, on that one. And trust me, I know a lot of stories. I know a lot of I know how the sausage is made. I see the argument for people saying, "Man, I don't want to go indie," and I see the argument for people saying, "I don't know if I want to go traditional," because there's a lot of traditional people out there that spend a lot of time getting an agent, maybe getting a publisher to buy their book and publish it, and then that book sells a heck of a less copies than I sell as an indie publisher. And
Yeah.
and here you got Penguin or Atria or what, name your big brand author or a publisher out there that's pushing this book or published that book. And guess what? It sells hardly anything. And then what happens sometimes is really good books don't sell, and you don't get to do that more than twice with a publisher. If your first two
Yeah.
books suck, you'll probably not getting a third book. You're definitely not getting your contract renewed. And then you kind of almost have a stigma where you're probably not going to get a future book, so you're probably gonna have to go, not ghostwrite, but you're probably gonna have to use an alias for future books. And then the publishing world's gonna say, "Well, did you ever write anything?" Yes, I did under this name. What were your sales? I sold 300 copies of 2 books. You might as well say, "I got leprosy," and if you look at me, you're gonna get it too, because they're not gonna be happy with you because you don't have a sales record that they can, utilize to help them sell more books.
I remember hearing an interview with Michael Conley, who wrote who wrote the Bosch books,
Yep.
and he said it, and I've heard this from other authors too. I think even Jack Carr brought this up once, that for the big name authors like him and like Vince Flynn and like Michael Conley, the reason why people think they have a lot of money from the books, but in reality, how they've, made their millions, quote unquote, is getting the book optioned for things like, movies and,
Happens
TV
very
shows
rarely, but it happens, yes.
and and things like that. That's where more of the big money comes from licensing,
Yeah.
as opposed to just pure, book sales. That's very rare even among the big ones.
The stat in the United States is less at 1.8%. So less than 2% of authors in the United States make $100,000 or more.
Yeah.
$100,000 is not a small amount of money, but in this day and age, in most larger metropolitan areas, $100,000 is hardly middle class. It's probably
Right.
lower middle. If you live in Washington D.C. and you make $100,000, good luck getting a townhouse in Georgetown. Good luck finding an apartment in Georgetown less than multiple thousands of dollars a month. So yeah, the money for most people is, and then you got James Patterson or people like that might make $50 million a year. So they're part of that 1.8%.
Right.
Numbers, I've said it before on my podcast. I make a lot more in my day job than I do as a writer.
Yeah.
I'd love that I could. Sorry if my boss is listening. I'd love if I could quit my job and be like, hey, I make enough money to write, and I don't need to work for corporate America again. But the reality of that happening for most all authors is not very likely. That's just, and you have to, I always tell people that's not a negative because it sounds negative, but if you know that from the get go, if you know that going into it, that, hey, trying to make a living off this is very difficult, I think that can keep your priorities straight. And the priorities for any author needs to be write the best damn book every single time.
Yeah.
Sell. Maybe it won't sell. Guess what? Do it again. Do it again. If you love telling stories, go write the best book. If you're going into it thinking you're going to be the next Michael Conley, or you're going to be the next Stephen King, or you're going to be the next fill in the blank, or J.K. Rowling. I mean, look how many people rejected her and Harry Potter. She's worth 1.8 billion, I think now, or because I looked it up recently with my kids. That is the 1% of the 1%. So don't have that be your goalpost that you have to get to.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be disappointed. The other thing I tell people, and it's, when I say this, I'm preaching to myself, is it's about the journey. It's not the destination. When you get to that destination, you're not going to find like, oh, it's all super wonderful forever now. No, you're going to need a new challenge. So enjoy that journey of getting to what you think the destination is, and always be willing to move the goalposts. Find a new goal. If you fall, get up, do it again.
Yeah, even if you do make it to that top 1%, you have a whole, host of, new problems too. And
IRS likes you a lot more when you jump into those high income tax brackets.
the IRS, and then, if you become super famous too, like the media, attention too, and, people like
Taylor
people.
Swift. Take Taylor Swift as the example. Billionaire. I don't know how old Taylor Swift is, in her 30s, I guess. Billionaire. That girl could not walk down New York City, any street in New York City, any time in her life, unless she's heavily
Yeah,
disguised. Her anonymity is gone. She can do a lot of things in life with that amount of money, but she can't be a normal person ever again.
right.
And do you want to give up? You take for granted the fact of going to the grocery store. I wouldn't mind. Who wants to go to the grocery store? But if you could never walk in a grocery store again, now that is one of the nice things about being an author. I talked about this with someone recently. I don't even know if you got even one hand that you could raise of how many authors can't go out or can't go anywhere without being recognized. George R. Martin might be one of the, examples of he because he's so iconic. He looks, but even if people don't know fantasy and don't know Game of Thrones, then he can go places. But, most authors, James Patterson, super wealthy author. If James Patterson walked in my grocery store here in my little town where I live, I doubt he'd get a second look. And that dude's worth a ton of money, but no one knows who James. Now, if George Clooney walked in that grocery store, somebody would likely be like, "That's George Clooney," or "That's Taylor Swift," or "That's
Yeah,
Salma Hayek, my favorite." Sydney Sweeney. I mean, they'd get recognized by a lot of people, but authors, nah, you're not probably going to make a lot of money, and if you do, you're probably fine. No one's
yeah.
going to.
No, I actually had this conversation when I had Kyle Mills on my on my podcast. I asked him if he ever got recognized, and he said he only got recognized once, but he said he told me another story of one time he was at like a Barnes and Noble, and he was in the thriller section, and someone found one of his Mitch Rapp books, and just and just like casually asked him, "Hey, have you read this one?" Yeah, and Kyle just goes, no, but I've heard it's pretty good." And you
I haven't
know,
read it, but I wrote it.
that guy probably left
Yeah,
not knowing, or maybe later that night figuring, holy cow,
I know. Yeah,
that was the guy or something
that's
like.
funny. That's the good thing about being an author in that regard. The bad thing is you're probably never gonna make enough money to quit your day job. The good thing is, guess what? Your anonymity will be just fine. Because
Right.
I had one time, and it was local. It was not where I live, but it wasn't far away. I was in a Publix one time, and I hear body man. And I turn around, and it wasn't someone I knew, but it was someone. It was a friend of a friend who. So I think we were connected on Facebook or something.
Yeah.
And so, I talked to him and stuff, but it was cool. I was out and about and someone recognized me for being an author. And that was basically the one and only time, besides going to book events or stuff like that. But yeah, feels good. Feels good to have someone, if every time I walked out, every time I went to, The Rock, every time The Rock, if he wants to go to dinner or whatever, you get 100 people line up that want your autograph and pictures, and you can't take a bite of your food. No, nightmare, nightmare. Give me the CEO that makes $5 billion a year and literally no one knows what he looks like. That's the guy that's got the gig, not the famous person who everybody knows. That sucks.
Well, that's the other thing too, is I've talked to people who knew Charlie Kirk pretty
Mhm.
well before he became pretty famous.
Right.
I actually did meet him before he was famous. Never got to know him super well. But the one thing I can tell you, and I have heard too, is that fame changes your personality. Not necessarily in a bad way either, but like sometimes, the more public you are,
Hmm.
the more risk you are of crazy people trying to do stuff. And
Sure. Absolutely.
so you have to take precautions,
Yeah.
especially when, even if you're not, trying to like harm anyone or do, anything, people like, "Oh, that guy's a jerk. I want to, harm them or do, worse." And,
Yeah.
that.
Joe Rogan talked about that in one of the podcasts I heard the other day. He
Yeah.
was talking about some place he went to. I think he was in Ireland or Northern Dublin, Northern Ireland. He was somewhere and he was out of a bar. He was up there doing comedy, right? Having a bar, having drinks, grand old time. And he basically said, I can't do that anymore. Anytime I go out to a restaurant or bar, I'm recognized. So his options of anonymity, of just going out after a comedy set and just bar hopping, you got to have security with you. And then
Yeah.
even still, it's super annoying to be sitting at a table and have to have people standing in front of the table pushing people away, because that's so. Yeah, fame comes at a cost, and I think the cost is probably much higher than a majority of people that get it are probably willing to have after they have it. And it's too late.
Yeah, well, and to kind of circle back, at least with indie authors, we might have some internet fame, but
We're not famous.
there's well, as I like to say, we're famous in small circles,
Right.
so
Yeah,
so to
absolutely.
speak. But anyway, well, also you've had the opportunity to travel and
Hmm.
do interesting things. And by the way, your new website is awesome, by the way, especially with the new
It's pretty cool.
globe page that you have. I don't want to spoil
Spoil it.
much,
Yeah,
but
it gives you all locations from the book and places I've been, and places the books are set. Sometimes some of them I have been to. I've been fortunate. Yeah, last year I needed to get out of the country last year. I tried to do it once a year, and I found a really cheap flight to Barcelona. And a buddy was going to go with me, and he had to back out because of some passport issues. So I did something gutsy for me at the time was I've traveled by myself overseas, but I'd never been to a non-English speaking country, or predominantly English, although I think more people spoke English there than my local Walmart, but that's neither here nor there. So I went to Barcelona by myself. I had a blast, had a great trip. And one of the things I did, a friend recommended some things that I didn't even know to do. I ended up taking a boat ride up the Mediterranean to this little town called Tossa de Mar. Walled town. It's on a little inlet. The walled portion juts out into the ocean. And as the boat kind of went around into the inlet, I go, this, because I didn't know where I was going to set part of the book. I was like, I'm setting the part of the book right here. So I walked around the city, had like 3 or 4 hours through the tour I was on just to walk around the city. And that became kind of a key chapter in Downfall, where one of the former body men, he's living there. He's living in a particular apartment, but you have to read the book to find out why, because it's famous. Famous people were there. So he's emulating what they were doing, or that living in that same spot, basically. And but yeah, if for me, I love that aspect of writing where I can travel when it's an option. It's not always an option, but when I
Yeah.
to see places. And I got a big trip coming up next month, New Zealand and Australia. So if anyone wants to know where future Body Man plot line might go, probably going to be, Oceania. And I have no idea how it'll work into the story yet. And that's the beauty of going, taking pictures, eating the food, hopefully not getting kicked in the face by a raccoon or a kangaroo, or eaten by a water crocodile or whatever they have out there, and all the poisonous crap, and coming back and telling a story one day. So
Yeah. So, in relation to that, for some reason, I get asked this question a lot. It kind of, I guess it makes sense, but like, do you have like an ending planned for the body man at this point, or like, do you have an idea of, where the structure is, or are you just gonna keep putting them out as long as
I don't know.
you can?
I don't
Peop
know.
peop People ask me that, and I'm always
Yeah.
like, "Well, you know, I eventually I do want ends, but I mean, as long as there are foreign entanglements and whatnot, John Ryder is always going to be
Yeah.
around, kind of, is
Yeah.
my
Since we're
thought."
kind of wrapping this up in a couple minutes, I think one of the hints is where we're going next with the next Body Man book is I like, and one of the reasons I do what I do is I like the idea of not just the main character carrying every book. I like the smaller characters, and I like them to really step up. So in last year's book, Supreme Justice, it was really about Merci. So the next book is actually going back to some minor characters. So book 5 in the series, the Body Man will be in it, and I'll probably work in some Australia, New Zealand that might come to fruition in book 6. But book 5 really is going to be 2 of the minor characters are going to have a major role. I've got it started. I've got the title already picked out. I know the concept. I know how I'm ending it. It's on the back burner right now because I am writing a high concept thriller that I'm probably going to try
Sure,
traditional with.
sure.
So I'm trying to get that done by the end of the year, and I'll probably be working on that on the trip. And then I also have I got asked to participate for a crime espionage anthology. I have to write that story. I kind of came up with my idea, so I'm going to try to write that on the plane because I got 17 and a half hours from JFK to Auckland. Yeah,
Oof.
writing. I got an aisle seat for that one. I normally like window seats, but I'm like, I want to be able to get up whenever the heck I want to get up and walk up and down that aisle because 17 and a half hours. I've done 10 and a half. 10 and a half was long. I think I went to Milan one time and I watched like 4 movies. I started watching TV shows and we still had like an hour. And I'm like, what? Then I couldn't sleep. I was like, what the crap, man? When are we going to get there? So now we're talking like 17 and a half hours. I got to knock myself out sometime and sleep for a chunk and do some
Oh,
writing,
sure.
some
Yeah.
other stuff. So
But yeah, I mean, glad you're staying active and, with writing, and glad that you've got plenty of other, projects on the way. And
I
that
guess I
that
didn't really completely answer your question. When does the Body Man end? I don't have an end set. Do I want to write the Body Man for the rest of my life? No. That's why I like writing other stuff as well. This high concept thriller I'm writing is not the Body Man or the Omega Group. Totally different thing. First chapter is bonkers. First chapter, if I can get a traditional deal, I think I can sell movie rights for the first chapter alone. So yeah, I just like writing. I love the Body Man. I love my Troy
Yeah.
Evans, the Omega Group books, so I want to keep doing them. But could there be an end date? And I'm just like, move on, kill them all. Probably not, but maybe put them to rest for a period of time. And with the Body Man, I can bring on someone else. That's the kind of the way I designed it, was I didn't want. And it's not a knock at Vince Flynn. I loved Mitch Rapp. I haven't read it in years, but I love what Vince did with that character. I don't want to write one. I don't want to write Nick Jordan for the next 25 years.
Yeah.
I don't think there's enough to Nick Jordan to write for 25 years. So I like the idea of having a role. That way you could bring in, the current apprentice with the series right now is a female. So we're going to have the first female Body Man, woman, I guess, at some point. So
well, that's also why I have spin-off characters in the Shadows of
yeah,
Deception
absolutely.
universe too. That I do like smaller,
Yep.
Novellas for too. Is the idea that, hey, John Ryder is always active in this universe, but he's off doing other things, and
Yeah.
we don't need to focus on him 24, 7.
Right.
It's,
Exactly.
you
I'll end it with this. I love writing. It's a blessing to be able to do it.
Yeah.
It's never work to me. Everything else is work. Mark, I love talking to you, Sam, but promoting your stuff, it's work. It's enjoyable aspects of it, but it's time. So to me, when I sit down and write, it's never like, this is drudgery. Why am I doing this? If it is, I need to stop doing it. I love that part of it. Everything else is where the job part kind of kicks in. But the writing part, when I get to sit down and start a new book, or I get to finish a book I'm kind of working my way through it, man, I've been doing that for 12 years now, and
Yeah.
I enjoy it just as much as I did in the summer of 2014 when I started Vengeance, which was my first book. I still love it. I still love creating the characters. You go in your own world. That's the part to me that you can kind of create your universe. So it's an escapism thing, I'm sure, from your day-to-day job and
Oh, yeah.
life, kids, whatever. But I like that. I like that you can kind of craft this thing, and then it can resonate with people. That's always great when I get a response from people that they like, I killed Marcus in Supreme Justice. Man, I got some nasty grams. Like, could you kill him? It's like, okay, that character and that situation was connecting with people. It was kind of neat to pull out, even though it was sad for Marcus, but it was neat to kind of elicit some emotions. So
Yeah, well, that was kind of going to be one of my final questions too. Is have there ever been any reactions from your books that have that have surprised you? Because
yeah. So the first book, Peter Kasha, who was a bad guy, I had people message me and be like, I liked Peter. I kind of wanted Peter to make it.
Yeah.
And then Merci, who, granted, she's attractive. She's, got all these good qualities, very intelligent, but she kills people. That was the biggest character I had heard from people, which made me decide to write Supreme Justice. Was people are like, what's this Merci character? And she was one dimensional in my mind. Hot chick, kills people. She comes back again and kills more people. Awesome. Why would this hot chick kill people? So I had to actually come up with a backstory for her, and that's what became Supreme Justice. So yeah, stuff like that. And sometimes when I'm writing that and I'm putting those together, I don't know that people are going to resonate with it, and then they ask for it more, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
that's connecting with people. Maybe killing Marcus resonated with people. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that that's popped up from messages on social media or emails or texts I get from people that they're like, I really like this one. And I'm like, I didn't see that one coming. It's a good character, but I didn't think that would be the one. Eli and Kat's relationship, that's one that people really liked. They're very, kind of brother-sister-ish banter and stuff. So I like exploring those relationships a lot. And it just makes it fun. It makes it sitting down, and I kind of feel like, to a degree, I obviously know these characters, and I kind of get to share their stories with people, which it's very rewarding.
Yeah, and then I don't know you, but I kind of feel like I learn more about each character as I write them,
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
which
100%.
which is
Until you
kind of
kill 'em.
which is kind of a strange thing to say since you you create them, but it's like, well, no, you don't really know, a character might start as like a one-dimensional,
Right.
thing, and then as they, grow, they become more, in depth and
Yep.
whatnot. So that's
100%.
always fun. And I agree with you that the marketing is is kind of the hardest part, especially when people are like, "You raised your prices? How could you?" And it's like, "Well, everything's going up and, the economy is, so the
Yeah.
economy is,
It's a
you know."
double-edged sword. Your costs are going up, but people's cost of living is going up, and writing or reading is a luxury. So people aren't always willing to pay more. But and I do the same thing. So this is me preaching to myself. Yet we'll go out and we'll get a Starbucks coffee for $7, but it's like I ain't paying $5.99 for an ebook. What the heck? Like really, really that
I
person spent a year writing that book, but you're willing to buy a coffee and then piss it out 2 hours later? That's cool. Like,
I
eh,
I I actually kind of got, I wouldn't say super pissed. I kinda got irritated with someone because, I was at a coffee shop with this person, and they literally spent, like, I don't know, $12 on, like, a drink, and then they were like, "Hey, they were like, "Can you send me a copy
right.
of your book and then autograph?" And it's like, "Well, no," but they're like, "But your book is like $15." And it's like, "Yeah," I'm like, "But you just
Cut
spent
out your coffee and
12."
you can get a
and
copy.
and I don't think a lot of people realize that, like, with KDP, we only make a fraction of whatever the list price is too on royalties. It's not, I don't get the 14, bucks in its
Correct.
entirety, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think, "Oh, Eric wants 20 bucks for a paperback.
I'm
That's
listening.
greedy."
I'm gonna show you something here. Here's a good one for you. And yes, I do have my original Bodyman copy. This is the hardcover. This is what the publisher did. It's got actually the dust jacket and everything. So this was done through Ingram Spark. I want to say it was 32. I paid full price for it, by the way. I buy all my own ebook, paperback, hardcover. I buy them full price, and those are the only copies I keep. But the reason I show that is that was $32, I think was the list price that people bought that for. Me as the author, I believe my royalty on it was 30 cents. So every time someone bought one of those
Yeah.
hardcovers, I got 30 cents for the cut. Now the publisher, it made a couple bucks at the time when I was with the publisher. It was like, insider information here. It was 85.15 for paperback and hardcovers. So whatever profits there were after the book sold from the retailer, the publisher got 85% of the profits left over. I got 15%. So that shows you. For a hardcover, I was getting 30 cents for a book. Now, paperback, I did a little better. I think I was getting like a buck something, maybe because the paperbacks didn't have as much. But for Ingram Spark, which is what they used for the dust jacket and all that, that's why I don't use Ingram Spark for hardcovers. And people
Yeah.
complained about it. They're like, we don't like the textbook. And they're not my favorite from Amazon, but I can price it at a decent price and still make some money off it versus if I go through Ingram Spark and you get a fancy little dust jacket, I'm going to make nothing and I'm going to charge you probably $10 more than what I'm going to pay from an Amazon hardcover. So
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. So that's where the business side of me kicks in of like, I've learned the business and the business side's important. And,
Yeah. No, I no, I really appreciate you saying that because I've explained this to people and they're like, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad." And it's like, "Well, no, this actually is, the price breakdown." And,
I
so
mean, when we get done with this, Sam, I'm going to go out to my driveway and get in my Ferrari. So, I mean, obviously,
yeah,
both
yeah, yeah.
a lot of money. Ha ha ha. But saying that only Ferrari I'm getting in is that little Matchbox little one that you buy for like $1.99 at Dollar General. That's what I'm going to have to climb in as an author.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna have to I'm gonna call into the, die cast, model scale Aston Martin that, I got for Christmas last year because you know, that's all I can afford as far as that Aston Martins go for right now.
Yeah,
So,
it's a
but
tough one. It's a hard conversation because I get it from a consumer standpoint, and I also get it from the business and the reader and the writer standpoint. Uh,
yeah,
the bottom line, write the best book you can and try to market the heck out of it and find some readers and be kind to each other. I hope the readers are kind, knowing that an author is literally spending what combined months of their life to put a book together, and
yeah,
they might be making a couple bucks on it from each sale. Not great return on time spent if you look at it from purely a money standpoint.
right, yeah.
That's why you better love doing this. You better love telling stories, because if you're doing this because this is a get rich quick scheme, Powerball, the local gas station, is probably a better get rich quick scheme than thinking you're
Yeah.
gonna get it with a book.
Well, it's also just like podcasting. People think, "Oh, I'm gonna create a podcast and be the next Joe Rogan," and it's like, well, no, no, you're not gonna do that. I mean, I've been at it for, for almost as long as he's been doing it, and you know, I'm nowhere near his level.
If you were Sam, I'd be saying we spent an hour on this. I'm expecting a $50,000 retainer for my time spent talking to you, and I'll give you my Cayman account when we hang up.
Believe me, if I had Rogan's money, I'd be like, "Hey, Eric, do you wanna join the podcast network?" And, you
I'm
know,
there.
we
See,
we'd
see
we'd
us,
be
Spear Talk.
yeah, we I would just buy John out
Just
at
buy
that
John
point,
out. We could do that. We could buy him
and
off
and
easy
and
enough.
he and he'd probably be happy with that merger,
Probably would
um,
be. Who wouldn't be?
so,
No, kidding.
but,
Totally.
yeah, no, but anyway,
Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate you having me on for the launch. I always enjoy spending these with you. My website is ericpbishop.com. I got a cool website. If you need a good website, I got a guy who did my website. I'm glad to refer him. I don't get anything for the referrals. I just would like you to have a cool website like I got. Go to Amazon, ebook, paperback, and hardcover. Paperback should be in other online retailers, although it wasn't in Barnes and Noble when I looked earlier today. So it might be slow on the backside, but 99 point probably 9% of my sales come from Amazon. So, and it's the best price. So go to Amazon, even
yeah.
if you like them, get the book there. If you want to spend the least amount of money, get the ebook. If you want a hardcover or paperback, Amazon is your best bet.
And 2-day free shipping, or sometimes, depending on where you're at, like, it's next day
Exactly.
too, so
I've got my paperback's not here yet. My hardcover came, my paperback was delayed, and I ordered them the exact same minute. So
that is so bizarre how that works out
it's where the
sometimes.
printing takes place. The hardcover printing is done at a different location than the paperbacks. And then I
Yeah,
do live out in the country, so getting stuff next day here is kind of hard. Most of the time, it normally is 2 days for most, and sometimes can be three. Because my daughter will be like, "Order me this," and I'm like, when it comes, you'll be back at your mom's. Sorry, sorry, you'll have to wait a week. So,
yeah, so,
but thank you,
but,
Sam. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate your audience. Hopefully keep an eye on the Body Man series, and Downfall is here.
yeah, and obviously you've got more projects in the works, so always, follow Eric on all of the platforms, Instagram. Hopefully X hasn't screwed too much with your algorithm like they have, other authors. I know that, authors are kind of a bit hidden on there now, but,
Yeah, I don't. I go there, but I don't see a lot of authors when I go on. A lot of the social media now, I'm get on and then dump off pretty quick. I post stuff and I try to look at people's stuff, but I try to spend a minimal time on there. There's too many sites and there's too much other stuff to do. And most of the time, especially X and Facebook, Facebook is all just ads, which I do run ads on Facebook. So please check out my book ads on Facebook. It's good for that. X seems like it's more of a dumping ground for everybody hates each other and the world's going to come to an end and AI is going to take all of our jobs. And I don't want to hear much of that crap anymore. So
yeah, it's great. It's great writing inspiration kind of for what I'm doing, but that's pretty much about it. It's kind of like an idea ground, and that's it. It's not what it used to be when I first started promoting, which is unfortunate. So
Social media. So I'll end with this statement, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, but social media used to be, in my opinion, kind of fun. Like I had some fun interactions with authors, and like we would just bust each other's chops, and we go back and forth. Almost none of that happens anymore in my experience. Now it's just you hardly interact with authors. There's not much like banter back and forth very much, and from what I see. And social media is very much not fun anymore. So maybe it's out
yeah,
of time, and it's it's dwindling now. And now the big plants are teaming up to build the T1000s to execute us all in the next couple of years. So hey, read some books.
hooray! Yeah. Either that or we're all gonna get jacked into the Matrix and be living in an alternate reality.
Feel the pull sometimes. It's back there somewhere.
Hey, at least I can fly though in the future, maybe.
Exactly.
So, but
Exactly. You'll have wings, Sam.
yeah, and I'll know gun fu too. So if
Thank you,
anyone,
Sam. I appreciate you, buddy.
alrighty, thanks for coming on, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. Whether this was live or on the podcast, and uh, Eric has his own podcast, A Tale of Two Scribes, which you can check out. And as for me, I'll be back tomorrow at our normal 10 p.m. time. Until then, take care and thanks for tuning in, everyone.
The right to offend is not some pesky little part of freedom of speech that we have to put up with. It is the heart and soul and lungs of freedom of speech. It is the coursing lifeblood of human progress. It is the instigator of liberty and modernity and science and understanding. What a laughing stock today's student leaders are, that they can so casually dismiss the right to be offensive without realizing that their lovely, enlightened lives are the gift of individuals who gave offense. Offensiveness is not just something we have to begrudgingly accept. Offensiveness is the motor of human progress.
Thank you for watching the Whitfield Report live on the Right to Offend Media Network. Make sure to check out Sam's books on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. You can follow Sam on X at SamW_NGC and the Right to Offend Media Network at RTO Media. Like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, God bless, God save this great nation. God, freedom, legacy.